There she goes. We're recording. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. We're here for lesson 11, which covers section A and B of the exam. So in this lesson, we are going to be covering lesson 8.1, section A, what to expect. Lesson 8.2, questions and answers. Lesson 8.3, examples. Lesson 8.4, section B, what to expect. Lesson 8.5, questions and answers. And lesson 8.6, examples. It looks like a lot. It looks very big. Don't worry, I've broken it down. We don't have all of that on here, but everything I've done today is based off your Cloudport information. So hopefully you've already seen that. And if you haven't, then you can go and look at it afterwards. But I've based this whole lesson on your Cloudport information that you have in Unit 8. So section A of the exam, what does that look like? So section A of the exam paper will give you 2 pieces of text which you haven't previously studied and which haven't appeared on other exam papers. We call these unseen texts. Both of these texts will have a similar subject or theme, meaning you can easily link them together or compare them with each other. Section A is worth 40% of your overall mark for the exam. Therefore, it's suggested that in a 3-hour exam, you should spend roughly 40 minutes on this section. It may be useful to know what the exam board will be assessing in this section, so you know what they're looking for and what exactly it is you should be doing. So AO1, Assessment Objective 1, is read and understand a variety of texts, selecting and interpreting information, ideas and perspectives. That's what they're marking you on. That's what they're going to see. Has this person understood this well in the exam? Assessment Objective 2 is understand and analyse how writers use linguistic and structural devices to achieve effects. It's very wordy. It's just basically, have you understood and can you analyse how writers are using certain English terms to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And AO3 is to explore links and connections between writers' ideas and perspectives, as well as how these are conveyed. So the questions you will be asked will be written in such a way that should lead your answers to tick these assessment objectives. So don't worry about having to know how each question will be marked. The natural way that they're going to ask you will lead to see whether you understand this or not. So section A consists of 7 questions and they follow the same format each year. Text A, text 1, will have 3 questions about it. The first 2 of these will be retrieval focused questions focused on AO1. The third question will require more detail and will be focused on AO2. Text 2 or text B then has the same format with another 2 retrieval questions and a third requiring more details. This is your first 6 questions. The final question in section A, question 7, is a much bigger question, but it is still concerning the first 2 texts that you've been looking at, text A and B. This question requires you to highlight and analyse connections and contrast between the ways that the text presents their ideas and perspectives. And this question focuses on AO3. So that is our 7 questions of section 8, always the same format. If you look at a past paper and when you sit the exam for real, it will have this layout. So what are these 2 texts going to be, your unseen texts? What are they going to be? Well, as I've said, they will have a common linking theme, but as to what form they take, they could be anything. We've previously looked at almost all of these. These should be very familiar to you, and nothing given to you in the exam should be a shock. The text could be from newspapers, they could be magazine articles, they could be from websites, leaflets or brochures, travel writing, diaries or letters, web pages, or fiction, whether that's novels or short stories. We haven't yet looked at fiction. We'll be covering that later on in the course and in future lessons, so don't worry about that one, but the rest of them you should be comfortable with. We have covered those in our lessons and we've got up to this point covering those in our course information. If you haven't yet covered those, that's fine. Go back and have a read of those sections of the website, go back and watch my lessons that I've done previously on those ones. It'll be in the forum, but hopefully you should be comfortable with those and we can move forward now. So Now let's pretend we are in the exam. We've got our exam papers. One is the question paper and the other is our source booklet, because we get two books in the exam. One is the question paper, one is the source booklet with our texts in it, our unseen text. We know that section A is about text A and text B. But when do you actually read the text A and text B? When is the best time to read these texts through for the first time? Is it, I'm going to put a poll up now, okay? Is it A, we read as soon as the exam starts, before you read any questions? Or is it B, as you work through the exam, when the questions mention each text? So you work through it, and when they mention text A, you read text A. When they mention text B, you read text B. So if I launch this poll, can you all please take a vote? It should come up on your screen. Option A is as soon as the exam starts, before you read any questions. And B is as you work through the exam, when the questions mention each text. So give it a go, take a go at the poll, see what you think. I can't see who voted for what, so don't worry. I can only see when the votes come in and how many people vote. I can't see who. Thank you very much. Well done. Let me share the results with you. So the majority of you said A, as soon as the exam starts, before you read any questions. Well, there is really no right and wrong. It's up to you. It's however you work best. You might work best one way, other people might work best another way. But we do advise that it's A. We do advise you read as soon as the exam starts, before you read any questions. And there's a reason for that. I'll go over that. So when you begin the exam, it's always a good strategy to read through the two texts first before you look at any questions. The two extracts will be between 650 and 900 words, so you will have time to read them through before you methodically begin evaluating them. Not only will this settle you into the assessment, but it will ease you into thinking about the ideas and techniques explored in these texts. Furthermore, it will stop the questions influencing your reading of the full extract and allow you to create some interesting initial ideas of your own, because it is very likely that the questions will give you clues to the text. For example, one of the exam questions might say, how does the writer show you that he thinks swimming is a healthy sport? Then you've just been told without question what the writer thinks. The writer does indeed think that swimming is a healthy sport. You're told what the writer thinks before you've read the extracts. So read them yourself and get a few ideas for them. See what you think, because it's nice to read the extracts without any prior bias or knowledge about what's coming. If you read the questions first, then when you do read the text, you'll be reading them through that lens. So try and read them first, if that's how you think that you're going to work best.
Yeah, this is the next section after the midterm assessment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You're right on track now, Rodri. Well done. Yeah, you're right up to date. Well done. So after your first read of the text, when you reread the passages, so after now you've read the questions, when you reread the passages, you're going to be doing a far deeper read. This time employing the strategies we talked about previously to work out what the author is saying and how they're saying it. You need to locate the main ideas of the text and structure. We've learned different ways this can be done, so let's remind ourselves of those. Looking over the introduction and conclusion and considering the overarching ideas that the author puts forward in these paragraphs. As we know, the introduction will introduce you to the whole argument, and the conclusion reminds us what those arguments were and ties them all together. So reading these two very closely together will be sure to point out to us the main ideas. Highlighting the topic sentences in each paragraph and noting how these ideas progress through the text and link together. The topic sentence, if we remember, is usually the first sentence in each paragraph, and it introduces us to the particular points which will be talked about in that paragraph. These highlighted and looked at separately will also give an indication of the key ideas of the text. Highlighting key words and phrases in the text that give you an insight also into what the writer is saying and their perspective on the subject. Lastly, don't worry about the time this takes you to read through it properly and to go over the ideas and to highlight pieces. This section of the exam is assessing your understanding of the text. So the time you take to read these through thoroughly and work out what they're saying isn't wasted, it's vital. It's key that you understand what the author is saying and how they're saying it. So note down your ideas as you go to remind yourself of them when you're answering the questions. Just wanted to add just a little side note here, but where I've said highlight, I just want to explain this further because this is a question that gets asked a lot in the exams themselves. You will get 2 papers in the exam, the question paper and the extract paper. You cannot use anything but black ink in the answer booklet. Please don't highlight anything in there. Don't jot down any notes. Black ink only in the exam to answer your answer booklet. But the source booklet with your extracts in doesn't get handed in when the exam is over. So you can do whatever you like in that. You can take pretty highlighters, you can go wild, you can jot down your own notes, you can do whatever helps you to learn and remember, but no highlighting in your actual answers. I just wanted to reiterate that. I get asked that in exams a lot. So when approaching the questions, it is vital that you read them carefully. So many questions are misread by students, and this will score you 0 marks. You have to have understood the question in order to provide an appropriate answer. This might sound obvious, but a lot of students make that mistake. Let's look at an example of this. This is a question taken from section A of a past paper. It says, explain how the writer presents his advice to new travellers. Now I've put 4 options here. We've got A, explain, B, how, C, writer, and D, advice. And they're words taken directly from this question. I want you to have a think about, and please tell me what you think the most important one. I'm going to put a poll up, so don't shout out. What you think the most important one out of those 4 words is. And we've talked about this before. All of them are important. So we're probably going to get the wrong answers coming in here, and that's fine. We just want to pick which suits the answer the best. So if I put a poll up, can you please tell me which of these answers you think is the most important word to remember and keep in your head as you're answering this question? Is it explain? Is it how? Is it writer? Or is it advice? Thank you for the voters. The votes coming in. Anybody else want to join in our poll? It's split. I thought it would be. I thought it would be. Okay, that's everybody voted. Thank you very much. I'll share it. I thought this one would be split, and I thought it would be this reason. So some of you have said explain, some of you have said how, and some of you have said writer. Nobody said advice. And B was correct. How is the absolute vital word in this sentence. Explain is important because that is the basis of what you're doing, but we all know how to explain. What people get wrong so often is they don't say how the writer, how. We're not asking you to tell me what the writer thinks. We're not asking you what the advice is. We're not saying explain what the writer says. We're saying how does the writer say it. You have got to remember, when it says explain how, we don't want to hear what he's saying. We want to hear how he's saying it. Is he expressing it formally? Is he using a chatty tone? Is he using rhetorical questions? You know, how is he explaining his theory to us? So yeah, explain is very important. Writer is important because we want to know now what the writer says, not what the text says, but what the person on top of that text was looking down and doing. We want to know that. So yeah, thank you very much for joining in there. How questions do trip you up, okay? Be wary of the how questions. Lots of people just explain what's happening in the text. That's a common thing. Don't worry about that. So now we have reading the questions. Where have I gone? So furthermore, you should always check the mark that is given for each question. You need to organise your own time in the exam. And to do this, you will allot time for each question based on the mark they are worth. A 1-mark question is not worth spending 10 minutes on. So have a look at how much each question is worth and move along quickly on the low mark questions. If you don't do this, you'll have too little time for the big mark questions at the end of the paper. So this question here, read text 1 in the extracts booklet, adapted from a piece of writing called Into the Heart of Darkness. Using the first paragraph, give 1 reason the writer wants to go on a journey. That question is worth 1 mark. You should write the answer, but you should give it minimal time. If you're struggling, if you're tripping over this, if you can't find the answer, move on, just keep on going. You've got time at the end to come back to it, but for a 1-mark question, it doesn't matter if you don't have time. Your time is far better spent on the 20-mark questions towards the end. So let's take a look now at actually answering the question and how do we go about that and what to remember. So if we look at box 1 here, this is an example of a question. Give 2 reasons why Kari Herbert believes hunting is absolutely necessary in Tula. We did this one. Do you remember talking about this extract? So I want to ask you first, how many marks is this question worth? You can tell me either in the chat or shout it out. The first box, to give 2 reasons why Kari Herbert believes hunting is absolutely necessary in Tula. 2, everyone's saying 2, you're absolutely right. Yes, it is worth 2 marks, easy peasy. And how many points, how many separate points do we need to give in our answer for that one, please? 2, yeah, absolutely. It says that very clearly, doesn't it? Sometimes it will say very clearly. Right, we're moving on to the middle box now. Why does Kari Herbert think hunting is absolutely necessary in Tula? How many marks is this one worth? 2, 2, 2, 2. Everyone's saying 2. You're absolutely right. It is worth 2 marks. How many points, how many separate points do we need to be making on this one? Tabitha says 2. Those 2s are not coming in as fast now, though. How many separate points do we need to make on this question?
It could just be one with an explanation.
It could be, yes, it could be just one with an explanation. It could be, yes. This is another reason, this is another way that we get points, is the explanation. But to be safe, I would definitely tell you to put 2 separate points for that, just to be safe. If all you can think of is 1, give it a really good explanation. But for a question low marks like this with 2 marks, absolutely, I would say 2 points. It tends to be a point on it tends to be a mark per separate point on these. So 2 separate points if you see a question like that. What? Oh, I've given it away. What about this one? The last one now. Who can give me this one? Give 2 reasons why Kari Herbert believes hunting is absolutely necessary in Tula. How many marks is this question worth? 4, 4, 4. Well done, everybody. Yeah, absolutely. And how many points, how many separate points do we need to give here? 2 points, 2 points. Well done. Yeah, well done. You've not tripped up on that one. Yeah, 4 marks and 2 separate points. How do we get 4 marks in a 2 separate point question then? Lisa, do you want to give this one a go?
Your answer.
Well done. Very, very good. Yes, explanation, Tabitha said. Absolutely that. Yeah, if they say 2 reasons, but it's a 4-mark question, they want more. They want more than just the reason. And you would always write this in full sentences, wouldn't you? You would always say the reasons are X and Z. You wouldn't just list them. You would write it in a nice sentence. This one for 4 marks especially, you have really got to then put it into a slightly posher answer. You've got to posh it up a little bit, okay? But yeah, elaborate on each of those 2 points that you've given. Well done. So here are some things to remember as you answer section A. If you're stuck on a question, just move on. The questions in this section aren't worth a great deal, so don't take too long struggling on them. Just move on and come back to them at the end if you have time. Some people even do this exam backwards. They tackle the really big questions first to make sure that they've got all their energy on the big markers, and then they do the 1 markers at the end when they've got some time left. Don't really advise that to work backwards, because these questions are really good at getting you into the text, at getting you reading them and getting you understanding them. So if you can work through it in a linear fashion, that is always best to do. But just move on if you are struggling. When you finish this section, read back over your answers again and make sure that you've tackled the question properly. Example, have you said how a writer does something, or have you just spoken about what the writer says? Don't forget your spelling, punctuation and grammar, and always answer in full sentences. You are being marked on what you know and how well you understand the text given to you, but you will lose points if your answers aren't clear and coherent, so don't let yourself down here. Now we'll move on to section B of the exam. The exam comes in 3 sections. You've got section A, B and C. We're going to cover A and B today. We've got a few more lessons and then C will crop up soon. So section B of the exam will assess your ability to use relevant information from the unseen extracts used in response to section A and present it for a given audience and purpose. I've been banging on about audience and purpose for months, and this is the reason why. This time you won't be asked questions that test your understanding of a text though, but rather how well you can write and produce a text of your own. You will be asked to create a recognised form of writing, such as a speech, a letter, a magazine article, or a website contribution. Responses will be assessed on the relevance of the information, the sense of audience and purpose, and the quality and accuracy of the expression. There is no choice of question in this section. There is only one question which you must answer. It is suggested that you spend 10 minutes on planning your answer and then 40 minutes writing your answer in total in order to best utilise your overall exam time. And please do spend the 10 minutes on planning, because it is really helpful. A lot of people think if I spend 10 minutes on the planning, I won't have enough time to write, but your writing will be so much faster and much more coherent if you have taken those 10 minutes to write a detailed plan. So the question in section B is worth 30 marks, and you'll be marked on 3 criteria, which we'll take a look at now. So assessment objective 1, there are 10 marks available for this question. Your ability to read and understand a variety of text, selecting and interpreting information, ideas and perspectives. This one was also assessed in section A, so you should have already gotten a good feel for this. What you must do here then is translate this understanding through whichever form you are asked to write in. Assessment objective 4, which is marked out of 12 marks. Your ability to communicate effectively and imaginatively, adapting form, tone and register for writing for specific purposes and audiences. I've been banging on about audience and purposes the whole way through the course. We've covered it a lot in these lessons. You should be aware here of how to alter your tone and language to suit different styles here. In section B, you must take all of your knowledge on this and turn it into a sophisticated and interesting piece of writing. We do have lessons coming up though, a bit more on this, but yeah, you should know by now. You should have a good idea of how to adapt your language to alter different topics, different styles. And assessment objective 5, which is out of 8 marks. Write clearly using a range of vocabulary and sentence structures with appropriate paragraphing and accurate spelling, grammar and punctuation. Throughout this course, you have been developing your vocabulary, learning how to vary your sentence structure to convey different meanings and enhance your writing, and how to effectively write in concise and linked paragraphs. We've also learned many rules of spelling, punctuation and grammar. This is where this all comes into play, and you will be marked on it here. To improve your mark here, all you can do first to improve these aspects, do all you can do first to improve these aspects. Give yourself spelling tests, increase your vocabulary, read for pleasure, noting down any new or interesting words and phrases you spot as you do so. And make sure that when you're in the exam, you read back over your answers and you correct any spelling and grammar mistakes you spot that you might have made, because that's going to bump up your answer as well. You get 8 marks on spelling, punctuation and grammar and sentence structure, so always worth going through at the end and having a read over. So to reiterate, section B won't have a choice of questions. You'll be given one and you will have to answer it. It will be related to the topic that you were presented within section A and the 2 texts that you have been given to link to. So in your course information, the example that you're given in the course unit 8 is travel writing. And so this question here is given to you as an example of a section B question as your course information. And this is exactly how it will be worded in the exam. So let me read through this one for you. Use ideas from both text 1 and text 2 in the extracts booklet. A friend of yours is going abroad for the first time. Write a letter to your friend explaining what it might be like. You should include what might be seen or experienced, what might be enjoyable, what might be disappointing. Think carefully about the purpose of your letter and the audience for whom it is intended. 30 marks. So from this question here, we are told all the information that we need. We just need to find that and pick it out. This is useful to do yourself and write down at the start of the exam and use it to form your plan. Don't worry about taking the time to do this here, because the time you take to understand the question properly and plan effectively will be worth it when you write a better answer. Try and stick to 10 minutes for the plan, but if you go over by a little, don't panic. So from this question, who can tell me who our audience is going to be when we write this question, when we write this answer in the exam? Who is our audience?
Your friend.
The friend, yeah, a friend of yours. That is our audience. Well done. And what is the form of the writing that we need to do? What is the form? What are we writing? A letter, Tabitha? Yeah, we are. We're writing a letter. So it's a letter to a friend. And what's the purpose of the letter? We've got our audience. We need our purpose. What is the purpose?
It's obviously it's a friend, so it's not exactly formal.
No, well done. No, it's not a formal letter.
I was thinking of the other one. I was just,
yeah.
and when you say it, I'll be like, oh no, why didn't I say it?
To inform, yeah, to inform your friend of what he might see or experience. Yeah, that's it. Well done. And it's Rodri, it's an informal letter. Well done. It is an informal letter.
Oh, informal. Yeah, that's it. That's
Well
it. I don't
done.
know why I didn't think of that. I know it wasn't formal because obviously it's a friend. It's not like a company or.
Well done. We're going to get onto a bit about in a second. We're going to get onto a bit about what a informal letter should look like, Rodri. You'll be good at that bit. So what should be included in this letter? What do we need to make sure that we put in this letter to our friend? We've got 3 points that we need to include.
What you've seen and experienced, and what they would enjoy, and anything that you think's disappointing.
Yeah, what they might see or experience, what they might find enjoyable and what they might find disappointing. Yeah, and exactly that, Rodri. You could say what you've found disappointed in the past, because that could say what they might. Yeah, well done. Okay, so how will the audience here, in this case our friend, alter the answer that we give? So Rodri's answered this in a way. He said that it won't be a formal letter because it's our friend. It'll be an informal letter. Can we think of how else the audience of a friend might alter the answer that we write? If they told us to write a letter to our head teacher, would we write the answer in a different way? We definitely would. So how else are we going to write this letter?
I mean, if you're writing it to a friend, sometimes you may even use slang words and stuff
Definitely.
like that.
Yeah, definitely colloquial language. Yes, definitely colloquial slang. Yeah.
Oh, that's it, colloquial. That's it. That's the one.
Yeah. What about the tone? What about the tone of a letter? We talked a little bit about tone. We are going to talk some more about that. But the letter needs to have a tone. What sort of a tone do you think it would have if you were talking to a friend? Because there's a reason they put friend as the audience. There's a reason they've given us friend and not, for instance, a grandmother, because you would talk very differently to a grandmother in a letter. Do you think it would have a formal, serious tone, or a bit more of a jolly, friendly tone?
A jolly, friendly tone, I'd say.
It could even have a jokey tone, couldn't it? If you're telling your friend, oh, you wait until you get on a plane and it's all cramped and you've got no food. You could have a jokey, it's going to be dreadful sort of tone.
You could take the mick a bit of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Obviously, because it's an exam, not with anything foul language or anything like that.
Not at all. Nothing foul, nothing obscene, nothing naughty. But yeah, they want to know that you've understood this is to a friend. This is not a formal letter. You know, you wouldn't write a letter to a friend as you would to a grandparent or a counsellor or a newspaper or something. They want to understand. They want to understand, or they want to see that you've understood. This is to a friend. This is a casual letter. This has got a jolly tone. This has got a friendly tone. You know, we're friends. Okay, so what structure and stylistic techniques do we need to use to write a letter to our friend? So everything we talk about, letters, speeches, newspaper articles, have got certain rules and certain structures. What is the structure and the styles that we need to remember when we're writing a letter to a friend?
To add the addresses.
Do you add both addresses on this one? So address there and address there?
I would.
That's a formal letter. If you were just
I think it would be one address because the thing is, if it's a company, they probably want the company address on there as well. But yeah, I'd say more. But if it's a friend, I think it's more casual, isn't it? So
yeah. So basically, what the rules are with a formal letter is yes, address there, address there. What the rules are with an informal letter is there are no rules. Okay, there are no rules. So if you would naturally write to your friend with the address, you can. If you don't want to, you don't want to. If you want to begin the letter, dear Jim, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to include a date or anything. There aren't really rules for an informal letter. So yeah, write however you feel. If you want to just write your address, if you want to write both, it's up to you. I would probably just stick with like a date at the top and then a dear whatever. That's what I would go for. But yeah, they want to know that you.
I suppose sometimes it could be like what you're saying, what would save time as well. If there's other questions to look at as well.
Yeah, definitely. Although if the kid says to you a formal letter, don't go saving time and not writing the address.
No, I know, yeah. But you've got to things like that, because obviously there's other questions which probably are worth similar marks or sometimes even more.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, so they just want to know that you've understood the rules. So if they've asked here for a newspaper article, you would have to have a headline. If they've asked for something like a leaflet, you would have to kind of like put some picture boxes in and something like that. You don't need to draw the pictures, but kind of show where that they would be. You need to explain that you understand the structure as well as the content. And in this way, a structure of a letter, it looks like a letter. So when you're writing in your answer booklet, you would write it like a letter. I know it's difficult. I know we haven't got words. We can't align things to the right hand side. It's not, might not fit properly, but they understand all that. They don't mind any of that. Okay. So in this instance, yes, we're making it look like a letter. So here are some suggestions I've given just on what we were talking about then. We've answered most of those there. I've given a couple of my own ideas before we chatted it through. If you want to watch the video back and pause it and jot those down, feel free. But most of those are what we've already just spoken about then. I just wanted to have them written down on the screen for you. So how do you answer this question then? Do you write it to a real friend, documenting real experience you had? What if you haven't got any friends that you write letters to, or if you haven't got any friends that are going abroad for the first time? Well, don't worry, they're not testing any of that here. You can completely make up whatever you like and whatever fits best with whatever they've asked of you.
I think I just make the name up, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. You're not limited if you make something.
And as well as that, I know obviously they're probably not going to look at that, but in work aspect, you've got GDPR and stuff like that, where if you put someone else's name and stuff like that, it may be better just to make one up, because it's
you're not limited, you're not restrained by anything then, are you?
Yeah.
Making a friend up is probably the best situation. Make a friend up, make up a scenario, and then your imagination isn't limited.
And an address, just make an address which is made up and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't go writing your best friend's real address in the exam. Good point, Rodri. So where should you get the ideas from for this letter or whatever writing they're asking of you? Well, you can use your own knowledge, of course, but there is a reason this question is always related to the text you've been given in section A. Use the information in section A to create as much of this answer as you like. So, for example, in this question about travelling abroad, we're not marking whether you've travelled abroad before or not. If we were, you'd be at a huge disadvantage if you hadn't been abroad. So they won't do that to you in the exam. They don't want to mark anything here but your English skills. So use the information you've been given here in section A. So yeah, even if you had never travelled abroad at all, the information they give you in section A is enough that you can go through and you can pull out the answers and write the letter as if you had. So let's have a look at section B of the exam. What might be seen or experienced? Let's talk about what we might write down then. We're writing a letter to a friend and we're going to tell them they've never been abroad, but we have. And they're going to tell them what might be seen or experienced. What could we give in there? What sort of ideas can we throw up? Can anyone think of an idea? Can everyone think of an idea? You can put it in the chat if you don't want to shout it out.
Well, in the picture, you've got an idea.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
You could talk about the flight. Because obviously it's got a plane on the picture, and that's something. Obviously, that might be not why they put a plane there, but you could talk about the flight because that's one of the things.
You could. That's daunting, isn't it? If you're going abroad for the first time, everyone will be worried about the flight. Yes, that's a good one to get in there. Tabitha said the views. Oh, the views when you go abroad. Yeah, we don't know where they're going. It could be the beach, it could be the mountains, but yeah, the views are going to be so different, aren't they? Yeah, that's a really good one. Anyone think of what else we might tell them? What about to be experienced? What might be experienced going abroad for the first time? It could be something big. It could be something really little that's stuck in your mind from going abroad.
Did we say the weather?
The weather, absolutely the weather. Meadow has said a new culture or a language. Yes, we've all heard people speaking another language, but when you get off that plane and everybody's speaking it, that's new, isn't it? Jet lag, Tabitha. I've never had jet lag, but yes, that is definitely a new experience that you will be warning your friends about, isn't it? Definitely.
Going through security at the airport.
Oh, Lisa, yes, going through security. We'll save that for the negative, shall we?
Travel sickness.
Travel sickness, yeah, travel sickness. Security, oh man, I hate security. I've started cruising recently, and this is why I love cruising, because there's no security big lines. There's nothing. You just swipe your card and get on the boat. Honestly, I don't think I'd go back on a plane after I started cruising. That is something I would mention in my letter to a friend. Good one, Lisa. So what might be enjoyable? Because we've kind of dwelt on the negatives. What are we going to tell our friend to look forward to when they're going abroad for the very first time? Not the jet lag and not the security queues.
The nightlife or stuff like that.
Good one. The nightlife,
or the beach, or the pool,
beach,
and what the hotel was like.
Definitely. And Tabitha's gone the opposite from nightlife, and she's gone the new culture. Tabitha's gone culture. Roger went nightlife.
Saying that though, I don't drink, so but I still like going out though. I do like.
You can still party without having a drink, Roger.
Yeah. Even though I don't drink, I still like going out to clubs and things like
Good
that.
for you.
Yeah,
Tabitha, that's right. A new culture is big, isn't it? A new culture. If you haven't been abroad before, throwing yourself into a brand new culture and seeing how they live their life is really interesting. Someone's definitely going to enjoy that. What else is enjoyable? What else might we talk about being enjoyable about going abroad for the first time?
Food.
The food, yes, Lisa. The food, yes. Especially if you're going like an all-inclusive or something.
Yeah, that's one of the main things, I think. Really.
Yeah, always the food.
It's the food, yeah.
The food might come under the next topic as well. Let's have a look at the next topic. What might be disappointing?
Oh yeah, the food could be disappointing.
The food could be disappointing. The weather, Meadow.
Because we were on holiday once with my ex, and in the lettuce there's a caterpillar going around.
No.
And they turned around and they said it's because it's fresh lettuce, and I'm thinking there's a caterpillar in there.
That might have been disappointing. I think the coffee is always disappointing at the all-inclusive in the morning. The coffee's miserable. Yeah, the weather though, that is a good one.
Take your own tea bags.
Take your own tea bags, absolutely. Take some tea bags. Definitely take your tea bags. Yeah. Good ideas. There's some really good ideas that we've thrown up there, and we threw those ideas up without even seeing the text. So the text will give you ideas.
If you go to, I think it's Egypt. Apparently, you have to be careful of the food because people end up with fun in Egypt. I'm not trying to put people off Egypt.
I've been to Egypt.
People have said sometimes the food gives people funny tummies and stuff like that.
It can do a lot of places. It can do a lot of places. So maybe you could warn your friend about that. There's a lot of places where you can get a bit of a dodgy belly, isn't there? And you can't drink the water, and they say don't brush your teeth with the water. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good warning to let people know. So we've come up with all of those without even reading the text. So I think you would all be fantastic in the exam with those two texts. Well done. So we've gone over some examples here in this lesson, both of section A. And here we've just done section B, but this unit in your course information, unit 8, gives lots more details of this and shows in much more depth examples. I haven't shown the examples that have been given in your course here today because for you to understand the examples, we would have had to read through both texts in their entirety, and we simply haven't got time here to do this here now. It wouldn't be the best use of our time, but I urge you, if you're at this stage in your course now, or if you're past this and you want a revision session, please go and look at the examples in this section of Unit 8, because it is very comprehensive and very helpful. You'll have to read through the two texts. They're not very long. As I said, they're always under 900 words. You'll have to read through those two texts, and then there are a lot of examples given to you of how to tackle this question and of the answers to give. So I've talked a lot here about which words to pick out and which ideas to throw up, but I can't really write any example questions for you here because you would have had to read the text to understand them, and a 30-mark question is very long. So I haven't taken the time to do that here today. So please do go and look in your own time at those examples. They'd be really, really useful for you. And now we've gone over this in the lesson, you'll understand those far more, because what we've talked about here is the questions that crop up in that one. So what have we learned in this lesson? Hopefully, we have learned that section A of the exam consists of 7 questions worth a total of 40 marks. That you will be given 2 extracts written using a wide variety of fiction or non-fiction forms. That you should check carefully that you understand exactly what each question is asking of you. So you should tailor your answers and the amount of time you take on a question to the amount of available marks for that question. That if you're stuck, just move on and come back to it at the end. There is only one question to section B, and you need to include certain aspects of both extracts in your response to section B. and that you have to write for a certain audience and purpose, which will be given to you. There's that audience and purpose again. If you are wondering why I keep mentioning audience and purpose, go back to lesson 1. It's in the forum, our recording of lesson 1, or go back to unit 1, because we started this off on audience and purpose, because it really is the key to all of this. When you're given a text, you need to know what the audience was and the purpose to be able to understand it. And when you're told to write a text, you need to know the audience and the purpose for whom you are writing. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining me again today. You're also wonderful. I will turn the recording off now, and then any questions, any chat you want to have can be had.